Hey, Link here. Thanks for joining me for episode 116, where I speak with Sunset Visitor Creative Director Remy Siu. In this episode, we talk about winning the Peabody Award, how they got into the industry, some words of encouragement, favorite games, influences for 1000X Resist, point and click recommendations, hobbies outside of gaming, and other fun topics. Before we get started, don't forget there are links in the episode description that you can follow to learn more about Remy as well as the podcast. Also, don't forget to like and share the episode, and without further ado, enjoy episode 116. Hi, and welcome to the Red Tunic Podcast, a podcast where I look to rediscover what makes gaming fun and enjoyable by having positive conversations with those related to the industry. My name is Link, and today I'm joined by Remy Siu, Creative Director of the Peabody Award-winning game 1000X Resist. Hi, Remy. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I just want to note that, the laughter is, as we briefly touched on before hitting that record button, you saying it, the surrealness of being a Peabody Award-winning game. I want to talk about that, but before we get started, I'm wondering if you would mind just giving me and anyone listening a little bit about info about yourself, kind of like the elevator pitch or the 411 of who you are, just so everyone gets like a quick and easy baseline before we jump into it.
Yeah. So as you said, I'm the creative director at Sunset Visitor Studios, which is a studio that I founded. It's an indie game studio based in Vancouver, Canada, that focuses on narrative games and also telling diverse stories through speculative fiction. Before that, I was a performing artist, experimental performing artist for about 10 years. And, I studied music, but then I went into experimental theater, and then I did new media stuff, and then kind of did quite a long roundabout path to doing video games, which is something that I always wanted to do, and I love video games since I was quite small. So that has been my, Cole's Notes life, I suppose.
So
I don't know if people know what Cole's Notes anymore. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Do people use Cole's Notes? God, I'm so old. Anyway, sorry.
No, so I was gonna say that's a good question. I don't know if people do. I'm 37.
I'm 34. So you would know Cole's Notes.
Yeah, I remember going into bookstores and seeing books on those kind of things, right? The what have yous.
People must be like, who's this Cole person? What's what makes his notes so special? Yeah.
He for anyone listening, he saved you having to actually do the reading assignments if you really wanted to not do the reading assignments.
He wanted to pay Google, for the
before Google made it easy and free with Wikipedia having actual useful references before well, because before back then they were told not to use Wikipedia because anyone can do it. Now it's references on references on references.
Yeah. So,
but no, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the quick and easy rundown. There are a few things that we'll get to from what you said that I am interested. But first, I want to talk about the Peabody Award. That is a wild thing to get for a game. I'm wondering if you can touch on or speak to or what have you, just how the surrealness of it, how that feels to you. I know that's kind of vague or weird or phrase the question, but
No, I mean it is weird. Weird in the sense that during the development of 1000 Times Resist, it's not something we thought about, this kind of this award circuit that we've been on for this past year, and I think part of it is that we knew that Peabody exists because I think it's outside of video games, but many of the awards that we've been nominated for, say in the industry, we didn't really know existed while we were making the game. And but like specifically the Peabody, it's just, I think it's really wild because um it it I don't know everything about it. It's hard to like quantify like why it's wild, beyond that we just never thought that that was a possibility. And especially when we were making the game with like a lot of doubt, or it was like very much like a moonshot and extremely risky for us, and or at least extremely risky for me. So like to kind of think about, about almost exactly 1 year after release to like, I mean, the Peabody Award is like in the office here right now. That's really surreal is, I guess, the only word to think about it. But I think we're incredibly honored. It's just like sinking in exactly what it means, like I don't know.
I'm thank you. Well, first off, thank you for speaking to that. And I'm not, I could have done better and actually looked up like all of the video games that have been awarded or have made like the shortlist, potentially
Yeah.
win an award. But I didn't because I'm bad at what I do. However,
No.
the like what the representation of it for like how it's about the importance or like the award given to radio and like TV or like the stories that they give is meaningful stories that they give and tell and
Mhm.
such. And like it's wild that uh, games are at that level now. They've been at that level for a while. Be
Yeah.
very clear and very honest. I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
and as many others probably realize that or know
Yeah.
that. But the to see them winning, to have one win like that's really wild and awesome because uh video games are art. The stories are important, like the things they draw from, the things that they're sharing and telling and what have you, um, is is just like they're deserving of that kind of recognition. So like,
Oh,
a
totally.
huge
Yeah.
congratulations for that is where I'm getting with that because like it's wild, and also I get to say I've interviewed a Peabody Award winner.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as you said, like I think video games have been deserving of being recognized alongside of all of these other things for a long time now, and I'm really glad that like some of these more I mean some of these like longer standing institutions, I suppose, are starting to recognize that and look at games, and I think it's great that it will continue to exist, and I can't wait to like play what's nominated or wins next year. So
Yeah, and that's a wild thing because like we always hear about like game of the year shortlist or like the more that bigger companies or publications are dipping into games or what have you, they're getting their own shortlist or prestigious groups are getting their shortlist, right?
right,
And it's going to be interesting to see like the Peabody shortlist for video games, right? Like because that's
yeah,
just a wild thing to think of, and
yeah.
it's going to be exciting to see what comes of it or
Well,
more of it.
and it's what's nice about it is that to a degree it is also outside of the industry a little bit. So it's say like versus say something that is like extremely inside of the industry, which is like something like the Dice Awards, like the Game Developers Choice Awards. Um, like the something like the Peabody exists kind of like in a somewhat related, but like kind of it feels to me at least, um, because of the Peabodys get to have their own perspective on it. That's different than say some of the other industry awards. So that's cool.
Yes, I
Hmm.
understand exactly what you're meaning there. Similar to like the BAFTAs, it's not just catering to gamers, to the industry. So we have the chance to see more people introduced to gaming that otherwise wouldn't, and get fresh blood or what have you introduced to it that also might down the road or closer to right away like immediately be influenced by it or get to contribute to it, which is always a great and awesome thing. Because
Yeah,
the more new blood that gets into the industry, the more cool things we see, the better it can be for everyone, right?
totally.
So, Remy, not to change the subject too hard, but I
Mhm.
did want to ask this because you had mentioned that you were, you've been into games like your whole life, you've been playing since
Mhm.
a child and what have you. I'm wondering, what was it that got you into developing and wanting to be in this space? I know that you've contributed or had a bunch of other, I'm gonna say, creative endeavors, I think is
Mhm.
like the easiest way. No offense when I say it that way, but like a nice easy
No, no, for
umbrella.
sure, for sure. Yeah.
But you've had like a lot of um, uh, participated, worked with, collaborate, what have you, in a lot of interesting spaces. I'm just wondering, what was it about games? How did you get into games?
I think I always really loved games. I think it's kind of a weird thing because like games got me into art in the first place. I think I was young and I was like really young. I was like 4 years old or whatever, or six. Just that I like realized that games were like a thing and I really loved them. And, immediately I think even when I was younger, I wanted to make them. But of course there were, there was no way to make them back then. Very different now. You could become a Roblox like millionaire game developer as a 5-year-old, 4-year-old. That's its own problem, perhaps. But like, like at the time, that was not possible. So I think over time, and even when I went into my teenage years, it was not possible. And so I think I went to study art because that it was not possible. Like there, Unity did not exist. Unreal existed in a form that you could not access. The modding exists, I guess, but I guess I never really got into modding. I think the most I got into was like StarCraft custom maps and Warcraft custom maps and that kind of thing. But so I went to study art, and then always throughout the time thinking that it'd be really great to make video games because I love them so much, and also seeing the video games kind of transform in that period of time. Like I think it's gonna date me hard. Like I started going to school post secondary, 2008, 2009, and kind of graduated and then spent most of my time doing lots of art things, all the way to 2020, right? So in that period of 12 years, like the games transformed quite a lot. And over that time, I think indie games really became a thing. And I remember playing Kentucky Route Zero, and that was one of the indie games early on that I was like, okay, this convinced me that I could like work in games, I suppose, or like I could make a game, or I want to make a game. And because that was made by like 3 people, um, and the sensibility of it, I think more importantly, it's not so much that it was made by a small team, but the sensibility of it resonated with me, because I think I was always like a narrative gamer person. Like I played JRPGs, I played uh, other CRPGs. Like I mostly played story games, point and click adventure games as well. So when I saw something like Kentucky Route Zero, it was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. This is like all the things that I liked in games, and it's made by 3 people. It's an indie game, and also it was a mature game. It was like artistically, the sensibilities of it were uh, in tune with what I was interested in doing artistically. So that was like, oh my god, I got to think one day to get into games, and then I continued. This was like 2013, and I continued to make art and stuff like this, and eventually getting to a point where I was touring a lot, work that I would make, and then that was kind of the main mode of I guess making a living or making it feasible, which is like you make work and then you tour it. And it was really fun. You get to go to all different sorts of places. Tiring, but fun. And then of course the pandemic happened and much of that had to be closed down. And so I think 2020 was like the first time in like 12 years where I like had nothing to do. And I kind of took a break for a month and then just thought about like, what am I going to do? Like, I didn't know how long the pandemic would last. And something about the experimental performing arts touring scene, it's like, it's very fragile, you know, like I don't know how long it would take for it to recover. And so I just made a decision. It's like, well, okay, if I'm going to try and make something like Kentucky Route Zero, I might as well do it now. And so that's how I got into games or making games.
So thank you for sharing that. I find that that's really interesting to hear the whole, you know, how like you played a game and that game was like, oh, this is something I could do, right? And I always find it interesting to hear people's game, like
Right.
that light bulb moment for them or what have you.
Yeah.
As well as I find it, you know, I far from me, be it for me to say anything against this, especially because, you know, the pandemic is largely what made me start doing the podcast as well, right?
Right.
But I love hearing all the people that are like, oh, I had nothing better to do in the time.
Yeah.
Better, you know, like my hands are tied. I have to sit on them can't do the other thing. Well, here's
Yeah.
something I can do. I've always wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's always interesting, and I'm wondering, you know, from all of your experiences or what have you, do you have any like words of encouragement for others that might want to follow the same path, or even if you were to go back and like talk to yourself when you were a child, or you know, 10 years ago, even when you just experienced and found Kentucky Route Zero, like, do you have any words of encouragement that you'd like to share?
Yeah, like I mean, you can totally learn to do it these days on the internet, and I'm sure people know this now. Like I, I think it was not perhaps as um so much of it is just like finding um definitely finding a joy in it and practicing it and I think just to go and try. That's my biggest thing is just to go and do it. And try and see what you can come up with. And I think, you know, encouragement is always like, I only have like practical stuff where it's always like, you know your own constraints and try to thrive in them, you know, as opposed to fight against them. Yeah.
So, you know, I like the idea of knowing your limit, right? Because
Mhm.
not to speak against, like not to speak for or against either approach for that. However, you know, knowing for me personally, because this is the easier way for me to say this, I think safely.
Yeah.
Like I know my limit for things, and you know, giving the kind of advice or the words of encouragement to like know what you're capable of is something to me that seems really sensible because it's like, you know, it speaks a lot to also knowing when to ask for help or when to find
Yeah.
others that can play in that
Yeah.
space with you, right? So
For
like
sure.
for me, someone like me with my sensibilities, I think that's practical advice is fantastic, right? So, you know, thank you for sharing uh for that because it's yeah, you know, just doing it and, you know, the small caveat of like knowing or how I'm interpreting at least, knowing when to like find others that can help and not try and shoulder it and what have you on
Hmm.
your own, right?
Hmm.
Um, I am wondering as well, uh, because like obviously, as you said, Kentucky Route Zero, you got ahead of me or you
Hmm.
beat me to asking this one, was kind of like the
Yeah.
game that made you want to get into this space. I'm wondering though, um, like do you have a favorite game or favorite games or series or what have you? And I'm wondering what that uh, the games, what have you, might be, and like what it was about them that would make you say that they were the ones you would go back to, or the ones that you would, you know, tell someone to play or what have you.
Yeah. So, I think the way that this played out for me was that, you know what, the first game that I really fell in love with when I was a kid was the original Final Fantasy VII. And I shouldn't say that. I think before that, like I played so many point and clicks. Um, and I was really into them, like, you know, all the Monkey Islands, like Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, all the LucasArts ones, The Dig, Indiana Jones and Fate of the Atlantis, like all of it. And then I kind of discovered Final Fantasy VII close to when it came out, and that really blew my mind in terms of kind of what was possible for world building in video games. And then I think after that it was Kentucky Route Zero, and then after that it was like Nier Automata. And so I think those were like these three games kind of throughout my life that kind of made a huge impact on me. And what did I like about, I think, you know, Final Fantasy VII, I should go back to the general point and clicks and say that what I loved about point and clicks was that you could talk to people and they had interesting things to say, you know? And that's kind of not always true, right, of games. But in a game like Monkey Island, you go talk to somebody and everybody has something interesting to say because that game is a comedy, you know, to a degree. I shouldn't say it is a comedy, right? Like it's, so you got to tell jokes, and those jokes better be funny, right? So like my understanding of games will always have been like, oh, we should, like, when you talk to people, it's interesting. Of course, you discover later on that, like, oh, in games sometimes you talk to people and that's not kind of interesting at all. But at least back in the day with the point and clicks, like that's all you did. It better be interesting, and it often was. And so that was kind of what I really loved about point and clicks, that and being able just to kind of live in the space in the world. You know, I keep going back to Monkey Island because maybe that's the most popular example I can reference. Is like, you know, I really like can close my eyes and remember Melee Island. Like I know what that looks like, and I know where things are in relation to each other. And so living in that world was really, really great, and it had a real sense of place. Those games, like, you know, something like Full Throttle has a real sense of place, and of course, Day of the Tentacle, it's that house, right, and goes all the way back. And I think in Final Fantasy VII, it also had a really great, amazing sense of place, atmosphere, and mood that I think I think it was also my first exposure to something like cyberpunk, the genre, and it was also an early exposure for me of some of like non-Western influences, right, in media that, you know, growing up in the West, I was like, oh, this is really interesting to me. And then I'm also like, you know, there are things that I recognize also in my own life that I don't see in other more Western games as well, in something like Final Fantasy VII. And in general, it was just like an epic scope that I didn't realize it was possible in games. Because even then, I think I remember like leaving to do the second bombing run on the Mako reactor, and I remember distinctly being like, "Wow, this game is long already," right? As a kid, but like that's like barely into it, right? Like that's still a part of the intro. Now that you go back and think about it, but you know, as a kid, I was like going literally from the point and click adventure habit, going to talk to everybody in like Sector 7 slums, everybody I could, just to like hear what they had to say about what it was like to live there. And then of course I've already talked about Kentucky Route Zero, and then playing Nier, I think in 2017, 2016, I can't remember. was like there was a long period of time where I wasn't like games were not hitting for me, I guess. And Nier was the one that like just like completely absorbed me or something. I literally could not. I remember we were working on some project. I was working on some project with collaborators, and I think they had also started to play Nier as well at the same time. We all started to play it around the same time. And I went into quote unquote work the next day, right, at our studio. And I remember talking to everybody, and I was like, look, okay, I think we should all take a 3-day break so that we can get this Nier game out of our system, because I literally cannot think about anything else. I can't work. I have to finish this game. And I think that's what we did. And so, and I think part of that was it just felt like a game that was telling a story that was, untraditional. Like it was untraditionally, at this part, I'm like much older than I was when I played Final Fantasy VII, of course, and even Kentucky Route Zero. It's like being able to name some of these things. It's like it's the first game I played in a long time where it was like the form was untraditional, the moment to moment kind of subversion of things was interesting. Of course, it's a beautiful game. It's very stylish. The music is amazing. But like from a very macro perspective, you didn't know what would happen next because it was untraditional in this way, and it didn't. It had its own priorities and rhythms that it followed, and artistically, the voice of that game is really interesting, and I think I was just absorbed by that, not having felt like I got to experience that in a long time. Yeah, so that's a long answer to to that question. Yeah.
So thank you for walking through the four kind of favorites, or the four favorite umbrellas or what have you. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been playing through 1000 Times Resist this week. It was always on my backlog. I'm like, well, I'm talking to Remy. I should make an attempt. And as I was playing it, one of the things I noticed in it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like, there's an above 90% chance that this person enjoys Yoko Taro's work.
Oh yeah.
The first time it did a perspective shift for the level, the moving, I'm like, oh, okay, there we go. There's some Yoko Taro influence right away.
Yes.
So that the Nier Automata, the Taro influence, or whatever, that doesn't shock me at all because it makes perfect sense. But hearing you talk about how you wanted the influence of the point and click era, where people had interesting things to share and say, and not just like it's dark at night, as you would whatever nonsense you would encounter in like a RPG. It's like, oh yes, thank you, adult person on the street. It is dark at night. Thank you. And like all of that, just seeing the influence or hearing the influences, and with the game being very fresh in my mind, knowing where those influences are, it all makes a lot of sense. And so, thank you for sharing all that. And I'm, it's interesting to hear those influences, and also, like I said, see them, how they manifested in some really meaningful and interesting ways, or at least meaningful and interesting ways to me, because I am also a Yoko Taro enjoyer. So like having the perspective shifts and whatnot, I'm like, okay, this person knows there's a man of culture, or what have you, if you want to use that old meme.
Yes.
But no, and I am curious, just because I tend to try and not intentionally ask hard hitting questions, quote unquote hard hitting, or what have you. But like because you cited Final Fantasy VII, a game that is classically remembered as the game Hillary Clinton said was going to train bioterrorists back in the late 90s or early 2000s. which is just a,
And maybe she
nonsense.
was right. Who knows?
Yeah, there's some time left. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
I am curious just because of the talking about things that I notice as influence to the game.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering on the grand scale of um the amount of influences, like where were some of the other influences that cropped up? Obviously, um
Yeah.
the student protests in Hong Kong is one that is um
Yeah.
I don't
Hmm.
I don't want to say like really shoved in your face, but it's
Hmm.
there. You are,
Hmm.
it's you experience it in a sense. But
Hmm.
I'm wondering like what other kind of things were influencing the game because it is um a very interesting game. Like I'm enjoying it. So it's my
Mm.
word choice right now is more just I don't want to spoil things.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
so it's like
Yeah.
it's a really interesting game that has some really interesting twists and turns, and I'm just wondering what
Yeah.
kind of things inspired that or led into the development of the story from you and the team.
I think one of my favorite films or filmmakers is Satoshi Kon. Yeah, the anime director who's since passed. Um, but for people who don't know, Satoshi Kon made films like Perfect Blue. Um, and my personal favorite film, Millennium Actress. And so like Millennium Actress, I think was like a huge touch point for me in general. Um, perhaps in life. um, but like that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the film, but like that film kind of tracks a actress's life. I think like a documentary crew goes to interview this actress, and she's quite in her senior years, and she starts to recount her life, and we get to see a retelling of the life in the film, almost kind of like through her films. So you're cycling through this. It's also like a love letter to like I guess Japanese cinema and the history, and also like a history of like the studio system in Japan and all of this stuff, and like genre play, just switching genre as well, like having fun and playfulness with genre and time and all that stuff. So like that is definitely a huge influence. And the other kind of huge influence is that I'm a big Star Trek nerd, and so something like Deep Space Nine was a huge influence to me, and then um, to also one of the writers, Pinky, just kind of how the characters interact in that show and how just kind of built out that show is, um, and it just like the kind of like amazing kind of ways they can like do dramatic turns in that show. That and I would extend that further and say something like Battlestar Galactica, the new one, by descendant from these DS9 writers, had this really reckless energy that really influenced me, and then trying to it like made me realize that I loved things with reckless energy inside of them. And so that was something that was very influential. And then furthermore, something like Adventure Time was a huge influence, I think, because it can both be so funny and so serious at the same time. Yeah, so those are some of the other influences, I think.
So thank you for speaking to that. And I always, it's not a question I ask often or a lot,
Uh-huh.
eh, whether my own detriment or what have you. But thank you. It's always interesting to um, hear those the influences for those things. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
I am curious though, and I want to ask this one. As someone who played a lot of point clicks, meaning someone being you in this case. For someone that has played a lot of point and clicks, um, as a child growing up, I'm wondering if, looking back on them now, if you had like one that if someone was going to say, "Hey, what one should I check out?" What point and click might that be? Like, what might be um, the easy recommendation from you?
Oh, that's hard. That's a really hard because like, you know, um, um I would say, if we're trying to like, are we trying to like convert like some Gen Z kid into like a point and click adventure person?
Oh man,
Or just anybody? Because I'm trying to
let's
think like, there's a degree in which there's like different sensibilities to all of them, right? That feel yeah, sorry.
let's go with anyone because I don't think we're going to be
Yeah.
able to touch on any that are like the point and click adventures of Subway Surfer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My instinct is like if you had a walkthrough, like this is the thing, like with the point and clicks of it's that I think these days they're more enjoyable, like to a degree with a walkthrough at hand. So back in the day, of course, you had to buy a physical book. And I had some. I think so. I'm back and forth between Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. If you like Indiana Jones, then that's definitely the way to go. I think it's like the best Indiana Jones thing ever, which is my controversial hot take. I think it's better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Somebody's gonna send me hate mail, but I I think it's the best Indiana Jones thing ever. And I also think the Westwood's like Blade Runner point and click is really weird and interesting. And is also perhaps better than, sorry, not the original Blade Runner, but the new one, maybe another hot take. And then I would say, lastly, perhaps the Dig, because that is not attached to any IP that's currently existing. And I to a degree, I feel like Monkey Island is too famous now. People will have expectations, but the Dig is a really weird one that's interesting, and I think worth playing. But if I were honestly to try to get anybody into point and clicks, it's these days I would tell people to play Kentucky Route Zero, because that's kind of like a more contemporaneous, modern one.
So thank you for those recommendations. I'm sorry if your hot take on in the Fate of Atlantis gets your award taken away, but thank you for sharing the hot take all the same. Look, I didn't play a lot of LucasArts point and click when I was younger. I was more the Sierra side, so I'm not going to sit here and try and say that that's a bad take or a hot take. I'm just saying, if someone in a suit and tie comes knocking on your door, hide the award and say you lost it. They might be there for it.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for that, Remy. Now I do want to ask you this, because one of the things I like to talk about with people that are in the industry is who they are outside of the industry, right? Because
Right.
People are people. We're not all, our job. We're not all that one thing. Now, I say this, and some people are like, well, no, I am. And that's perfectly fine and valid. But I do like to ask all the same, like, what outside of gaming do you enjoy doing, and how do you relax, or what do you do to relax, or what have you?
This is funny because I often joke that I don't have any hobbies anymore. I feel fortunate to have been able to turn many of the hobbies that I used to have into work, but that's its own, double-edged sword. Also funny enough, like in the arts, like, especially as an artist, it's like very difficult to separate your life and your work. And so it's kind of just something that perhaps is permeated my life in general. But that being said, what do I like to do? I do like watching a lot of TV, I guess. Or at least, like I would consider the amount, like at least back in the day when, like I remember a period of time when there was like Mad Men on, Breaking Bad on, or Adventure Time was still on. There was like just a period of time where it was like every single day there was like a new episode of TV that I really wanted to watch. And that was, and I still kind of like watch a lot of shows now, but I guess it's a little bit different. So if there's only one, and I do of course play games, I am kind of obsessed with natural wine, which just sounds like such a thing to be obsessed with. That's kind of what it is.
So I need to ask you to elaborate for me. What is natural wine?
Oh man, I'm gonna get so flanderized.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I'm just saying because, like, if anybody that knows me, if anybody that knows me, it is a funny thing because, like, it's like the only thing that's not like work or art things that I like to go and do. It's become my trait, that I like natural wine. But I do like natural wine, so it's fine. What's the difference? It's like low intervention wine, I suppose, and it has less sulfites for that reason. Like there's like, I guess it naturally ferments. So like the other thing about natural wine, which I've been trying really hard to do, is like to not know a lot about it. I'm really trying to really not learn a lot about it. Of course, there's much you can learn about wine, right? Like you can really get into it. Like you can learn about the grapes, you can learn about like the regions, you can learn about all this stuff. You can participate in blind testings, which is appealing to me, which is like to a degree why I'm like don't want to do it. I just don't want to learn. I want to stay at a perfect level of ignorance about natural wine, so that I don't actually accidentally, like, we do another podcast together in like 5 years and I've like started a vineyard of some kind. So like that's why I'm trying not to learn about natural wine. And yeah. That is the, but in general, just to let other people know, it has less sulfites, which in general, like I find that, if you drink wine and you get a headache and it's like often there's a bunch of stuff in there that will give you a headache. But I find that natural wine does not have that effect on me. And also the tastes are more wild. They're like strange and weird. And like you have like these people doing weird wine, like it's to a degree, like if you were gonna, like if people liked weird beer from the craft beer era, that perhaps we may still be in, but I feel like we're no longer really in, at least in Canada. That's another hot take. Don't send me hate mail. Then you might like natural wine, because like natural wine very much feels like that. Because like you're 37, you said, like you probably remember a time when, at least in Canada, that craft beer started becoming a thing, and you're like drinking beer and you're like, oh my god, this is weird, and this is like it feels like this for natural wine, and to a degree I wonder like if this is how wine used to be made before it became extremely industrialized, or I don't know. Again, I don't know enough about wine, and I've decided not to find out. So that is yeah.
Thank you for that, as well as the hot take. Now, I will say this. that
Yeah.
I am not a huge craft beer person. However,
Okay.
there's a big however.
Yeah.
I still know what you mean because I um I say used to in the past tense
Uh-huh.
because my fiance, she has a
Uh-huh.
cat. I can't trust the cat.
Okay.
I for several years did nothing but make homebrew hard cider. Um
Oh yeah. Okay,
and
cool.
do a whole bunch of different things because it's really easy. You can just buy some apple juice, you can add a cup of sugar for a gallon, add a gram of yeast,
Yeah.
pack it away for a week. Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
cider. It'll do its thing most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, I was doing other weird things into it, like
Yeah.
trying all sorts of stuff. So
Yeah.
I I hear what you're saying, and I understand completely. So as much of a vague definition that natural wine is, and by the way, I googled it, and it seems your vague definition isn't by choice of not knowing; it's just how it works.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. Um, so yeah, so no, I understand completely, and that's a really interesting thing to know that it exists. So um, thank you for telling me about that. And then
Well, if
if
you
in
like cider, you might this may be like, um uh you might like it.
I was about to say that you're yes, that this might be something that's a
Yeah.
new rabbit hole when I have the ability to do things without fear of a cat being a moron and trying to push a gallon of
Yeah,
juice
yeah, yeah. I
down,
mean,
right?
like, if you like, like if you went to a place that had natural, you can ask for a pet nat, and then that will be very cider-ish. Yeah.
So thank you
God.
for that. Now I have a new realm of things to explore. So thank you so much for that new rabbit hole, Remy.
Ugh.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
I'm just an
it.
enabler. This is something that just yeah.
Um, but no, honestly, thank you so much. That's really interesting to know that it exists. Um, so I am curious as well because curious is the wrong way to lead into this one, but
Mm,
it is at the same time. However, when we initially started talking, we you didn't have the whole day for me to steal, so I want to be
mm,
cognizant of that. But at the same time, I do have some lightning round questions that I'm hoping you
sure.
don't mind that I bug you with.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. Now, as I said before we started recording, the lightning round questions, they're lighthearted, they're nonsense, they're random, um, and you are free to answer them with as much detail or lack of detail as
Hmm.
you wish, and there's no judgment. As I said, they're random, so you can
Yeah.
just take and do however you would like with these. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, which video game character do you think is most likely to be pro Salem witch trials?
Oh, I don't know. I have to pass on that one. That's going to be a long time for me to think on
Fair enough.
that.
Fair enough. I'll hit you with some other ones then. We'll see how
Yeah.
these ones go.
Yeah.
Um, whi- which video game character do you think would most likely want uppies from a goth dommy mommy?
Oh, these are good. These are good. That's why I'm like, is there? Do I just like?
Shoot from the hip,
Uh,
Remy. Feel
oh
free to
my
shoot
god!
straight from the hip.
I'm just gonna answer every one of these Indiana Jones. I'm kidding. Wouldn't that be funny? Um, yeah, I'm just gonna say Indiana Jones for this one. Otherwise I'm gonna be stuck on this light. There's supposed to be lightning round. It's supposed to be fast. Yeah,
Um,
it just sends me into a deep spiral of thought. Yeah,
So, that's also a fun thing
yeah,
to know that I'll be doing, and you'll be waking up at 2 a.m. screaming a random name, and your
yeah.
neighbors will hear you being overly confused, right?
Yes, yeah.
Um, here's one then that maybe will be a little easier.
Uh-huh.
Which video game character do you think takes the term yard sale literally?
What's his face from Mass Effect? The Tyrion. God, I'm like, I can't remember the name. I gotta look it up. I'm gonna go quickly look it up.
It makes you feel any better. I too am also horrible with names.
Yeah, no, I mean that's part of the problem here. God, like someone on the other side listening to this is like rage quitting right now. Garrus from Mass Effect. Yeah.
Fair enough. He'd probably take it literally, or what have you, right? Well, like literally, that's the question.
It would literally take it literally, I guess.
Yeah. Which video game character do you think is most likely to call themselves a thirst trap despite having no business doing so, and why? Or
Indiana Jones. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to tell you wrong. However, I think Harrison Ford and many others would disagree with you, but as it is, right?
Hey, I mean, I'm clearly the Indiana Jones. What's
connoisseur, enjoyer,
connoisseur here? Yeah. Yeah, I'm memeing here, but maybe only half. So
fair enough. But no, thank you, Remy. That is the lightning.
Oh, that's the lightning round. Yeah,
that is it. Just a few of them. Just a few quick hits from it.
Yeah. So I mean, like we were at the. Is this the podcast where I say this? Like we were at the Dice Awards this year, right? Because we were very lucky to have been nominated for a lot of things, and so I didn't realize how much people still loved Indiana Jones so much until I went to that Dice Awards. I think part of it was just because the Indiana Jones game came out this year, right? One that is inferior to the fate of Atlantis, and but it's a little bit of that. It's on my mind, the meme that I could answer Indiana Jones to all of those questions that you just asked, and I think that would maybe be the best answer.
So with that one, let me set you up. I know this. Let me set you up the soft pitch then. I was avoiding this one intentionally, but I'll throw this one to you for fun.
Yeah.
Which video game character is most likely to think of the Holy Roman Empire at least once a week?
Yeah, that's definitely Indiana Jones. Yeah. or as some people call, Dr. Henry Jones. Yeah.
Meme or not, that one is a very easy home run, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think Indiana Jones was actually maybe one of the earliest video game sprite. I don't know, like I think to a degree, like somehow like also like Star Trek, for example, was one of the earliest video game things. Like it's not licensed, right? It's just like nerds who are like my dad who like were making these, vector like ASCII2 kind of games back in the day on really old computers, and there would be like a Star Trek-esque simulation, and then there would be like a Indiana Jones-esque person running around. I don't know, whipping things, I suppose. I don't know what he does. That's the thing about the Fate of Atlantis, is why it's good, because Indiana Jones, I guess in movies he goes around punching people, but the most interesting that he does is that he talks to people. So anyways, I can't believe it.
So, thank you for all of that. I appreciate the commitment to the meme all the same, regardless. But Remy, I as I said, I being cognizant of our time together, not wanting to steal more than you had available or what have you, I wanted to basically say that that's pretty much it. I don't want to take too much more of your time. However, if there was anything else you want to discuss, a cool game, what else you're doing, something you feel more people should be more aware of, by all means, the floor is yours. As well, please let everyone know where they can find more information about you, which I'll also be including in the episode description.
Yeah, you can find me on Blue Sky at remysiu.com, and then you can follow the studio account as well, sunsetvisitor.studio on Blue Sky. I recently we have some 1000 Times Resist merch and vinyl, so you can see the links on that on our Blue Sky and check it out if you played 1000 Times Resist and you wanted to have a T-shirt or a really beautiful record that we're making with very okay vinyl, which is also Canadian. So we are got some other things planned for this year, the year of 2025. But we can't talk about those yet, but we're pretty excited about it. So I think that's everything.
So, thank you so much for being a guest. I appreciate you making the time, and I will definitely make sure that people can find those links and then easily get to them from the episode description as well. I do want to say I'm trying to think of how to phrase this without sounding on a high horse. That's the wrong way to put it. But as I said, I recently started playing through 1000 Times Resist, and I'm really intrigued by it. It's a really interesting game. So I just want to say, to you and the team, you guys did, from my opinion, as well as from many others, clearly, that it's a fantastic game, and that it has me thinking. It's one of those games for me personally where the only thing I can say, the best thing I can say, is that it's definitely a game. In that there's so much that happens. There's so many interesting little perspective shifts, or how things are learned or presented, or what have you. Twists and turns. There we go. An easier way. That the best way to say it is definitely a game, but it's such an interesting implementation or presentation or what have you. And I just want to say I'm enjoying it thoroughly. You and the team did an amazing job. Thank you for making a cool game.
Yeah, thanks for playing it and asking me to be on. The game would be slightly better if there was Indiana Jones was in it. So that's that's why. There's always more to do.
Always more to do. I don't know if you guys would have survived the Disney lawyers if you tried to sneak him in any way. Not to say I disagree with you.
It's like Load Runner. This is Load Runner. No, sorry. Yeah.
I think you'd have far better chances of surviving Konami, given that they used to stick other people. They stuck Batman in one of their games. I think you'd survive Konami. So that's Sunsoft, maybe. Anyway. Anyway, Remy. That was it. I want to say that, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a guest. But if there wasn't anything else, I will shut up and let you get on with your evening.
No, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
So thanks again to Remy for making time to have this conversation with me, and thank you for joining us on the Red Tunic podcast, as well as a special thanks to Roland Jankies for the music from the title track from Roads Deep. And be sure to check out the episode description for links to socials, websites, and other means that will allow you to learn more about or support Remy and the podcast. And while you're doing that, share, follow, whatever else you think makes the algorithm work. Thanks. Till next time.